Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons in the NHL with those New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey, and we're going to start out today's festivities with a mea culpa, an apology from Tom Laidlaw for doubting Matt Duchene.
Oh, no. You were incorrect. There's no apology. He should be calling us and thanking us. It's the power of, we have the power of the people.
Yeah, I'll remember that the next time a player is mad at me. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to motivate you.
Yeah, definitely. Honest to God, though, I remember we've talked about this story before, and I actually saw a great article about Frank Brown and losing his wife to cancer on the NHL website. It reminded me of Frank when he wrote for the Daily News and I was playing, and I was terrible. I was my second year or something, and I was in that sophomore, like goofing off doing nothing I was supposed to be doing, and he wrote a very scathing article about me, and I sulked for about a month, wouldn't talk to Frank. I think back about it now, how funny it was. And he finally came to me, to his credit, and I really mean it. He was fantastic. He said, Tom, I wrote the truth. You are a much better player than the way you're playing. So I woke up and realized I needed to play better. And so we did the same thing with Matt Duchene. His career was, wallowing in the depths of non-effort. And because of us, we pushed him to get better. And he's now playing the way he should be playing. So,
yeah, I doubt whether he knew that we were critical of him. So, but it was a group effort. I agreed with your assessment of him. Matt Duchene and Johansson have held the Predators back. They've made them less competitive. When you have an $8 million player not performing, it's like having 3 or 4 players not performing because they're eating up a percentage of your cap, and the Predators have been a better than expected team. Like, I don't see them as a playoff team still, and I wouldn't say that they're anything close to being a contender. But with Duchene playing better, and some other, Yossi's had a good season, and more importantly, I think Saros has really done the job in net for them. And when you factor all those things in, they're actually in the playoff hunt. I mean, it's not unthinkable. I just don't think they'll make it. But it's helped them that the Blackhawks haven't been anything close to the team we thought they were going to be, and the Dallas Stars have started really slowly. In fact, I think I've started to hear a little bit of an undercurrent about whether Rick Bowness might be in trouble if they don't, sort of get themselves righted and get in a playoff position.
Yeah. Well, and like you said with Johansson and Duchene there in Nashville, you're totally correct with the salary cap issue eating up so much of the cap, but also it kind of sucks the life out of your locker room. And, we get 2 star players like that should be doing much better. And the appearance, at least from the distance, is that it's purely just a lack of effort. So the rest of the guys on the team, especially younger players and 3rd or 4th line guys, are saying, I'm going out here busting my rear end. And these star guys that are getting paid all the money just aren't performing. So, it shouldn't matter. Everybody should just go do their job. But it's human nature when guys see that, and the star guys are supposed to be those great players aren't doing their job. So, and you and I talked about before too, like David Poyle is the general manager, well-respected man. He put that team together, and it felt bad for him too that it just didn't seem to be clicking. So, you love seeing those guys play better. And you know what, Dan, we both talked about it. It's not like we don't like Duchene as a person. We don't like Johansson as a person. We don't even know them. It's for me as a former player, it's like get the most out of your career, and they weren't doing that. So good to see.
Well, that you bring up an interesting point that maybe we've talked about this before, but I don't. Can you talk a little bit, Tom, about what a locker room is like? Is it like a family? I mean, when someone is going bad, do you feel bad for them? Do you try to pull them out? Do you talk to them? Do you leave them alone? Or does it depend on who the personality? How do you deal with it?
Well, it does. It does. Each locker room is different. Makeup is different. What kind of leadership do you have? You go to the extremes, and you got a player like a Mark Messier in a locker room. In that case, like if Mark Messier was in the Nashville locker room, I don't think this would have lasted as long as it had with Duchene and Johansson. I mean, it's just you're sitting there with those guys. I mean, I saw it when I was in Los Angeles. Wayne Gretzky, Dave Taylor, Larry Robinson, John Tonelli, all those guys with those character guys have won Stanley Cups, are real competitors, talented players. If you come to the rink, you come to practice, you come to the game, and you're not giving your best effort, you feel like, man, these guys probably in most cases won't say things to you. They don't have to say anything. It's just their presence in the room. So that maybe is what lacking a little bit in Nashville too. They don't really have those guys, but you try to let the coach handle it. But as a good teammate, if you really, but again, being that good teammate isn't just something that you flip a switch on. It's over a long period of time. It's showing that you're going to stick up for your teammates on the ice. You're going to, even little things like you invite your teammates over for dinner. If your teammate gets traded there and he's all by himself, you take care of him. Really build that team atmosphere, that family. And then when somebody's not going well, it's much easier to go to them and say, listen, you are a huge part of this hockey team. Are you okay? Is something bothering you? Instead of, but there's other times which is flat out. Guys, I don't know how much it happens now. I think it still does, but it's flat out getting on the ice and beating the crap out of each other. Like, listen, you get into a contact drill, and that guy that isn't working hard enough goes up against a third or fourth line guy that works hard every time he gets on the ice, and they get into a little battle. Yeah, and sometimes coaches want that. They want to say, listen, okay, you guys settle it. This is your team. Go get it going. So,
leadership is so complicated when you think about it, and just the way you explained that perfectly, kind of brings that home where, it just depends on what the room is like, what the players like and all that. Like I think about Bill Clement told me a great story one time about being in the playoffs and having a really bad knee. And he's soaking in the whirlpool, and Bobby Clarke came up to him and he said, Billy, I need you to go tonight. He goes, Bobby, I don't think I'll be able to. My knee's shot. And Bobby says, well, Billy, you're so important to this team. Like, you're penalty killing, given how we play, it's just like critical to like, if we don't have you out there, we can't play like the Broad Street Bullies. And Billy said when Bobby Clarke was done talking to him, he leaped out of the tub and he was ready to go. Now, that's empowering someone.
Yeah.
And let's contrast that. I was watching a television show last night called Yellowstone, which stars Kevin Costner, and it's about a guy that owns a huge ranch, and it's a pretty rough business running a ranch, and they ended up taking in, for the lack of a better phrasing, a stray kid, like a homeless kid, and like they're really hard on him, and the guy that's really hard on him is saying, there's a man in there inside him, and it takes another man to pull it out of him, but. There's no like it's too rough a treatment. Like, it's too far, in my opinion. However, I think some people do respond to that. Yeah. It's unfortunate, and but I don't know. I can see that. It's also the same thing with playing time. In fact, I just wrote this. I'm writing about Giovanni Smith in Detroit, but players say, "Give me more playing time, and I'll bring my game together for you." Right. And the coach says, bring your game together for me, and I'll give you more playing time. Yeah. So, like, what is the answer there?
Well, you want the player. You want the player to be the kind of guy that doesn't go to the coach and ask for more ice time. He goes on the ice first, like you're suggesting.
Right.
That's what he's supposed to be doing. Effort. In fact, the guy you really want is the guy that says, okay, even if I feel like I'm being treated unfairly, this isn't fair. Coach, I'm doing what everybody else is doing. Matt Duchene's not working hard either. Why am I getting my ice time cut? So you want that guy that says, instead of whining and complaining about it, he goes and gets to practice early, and he works on his game. He stays out late and works on his game, and not to put a show on for anybody else, because he's saying, okay, obviously I'm not doing enough to be on the ice, so I need to do more. And then when it comes game time, and being a good teammate too. You don't have to be a cheerleader and like on the bench cheering everybody on, but supporting guys. And the game has changed. But back when we played, let's say you had a tough guy and we weren't playing really well, and the tough guy realized, okay, I need to go out and stir the pot here and get in a fight to get the guys going. But it's also incumbent on the guys on the bench now and the rest of the players to say, okay, this guy has done his job to get us going. We need to now respond. It doesn't do any good for him to do his job if we don't respond and get going here. So I mean, that's something like it's building that whole thing. We've had a lot of discussions on our Thursday show with the former players about this kind of stuff. About and the game has changed so much, but it's like a guy like Larry Melnick was. We went in to play Philadelphia, and Larry was not one of the biggest guys, but certainly one of the toughest. And he went out, and it wasn't just him. Went out and fought guys, and the rest of us were like, "Wow, okay, this guy's doing his job. We better follow up here." So, I just that leadership is a lot of different things. I remember Herb Brooks even too, and I've told you a story before. Again, he was different in his leadership skills. Herbie he was that mind game guy, not like a Mike Keenan or a Mike Babcock, more just getting to know the player. Like he knew me well. So I remember several times it was late in the game. You're playing a game against the Islanders with Gillies and Nystrom, and you're bloodied and you're sweating all over the place and you've lost weight and you're tired. It's like 30 seconds to go in the game and you got to kill a penalty. Like Herb wouldn't come down and ask me if I was okay. He would just come down literally and kick me in the rear end. He said, "Get the F out there." Like he knew what I wanted. I didn't want somebody pandering, like being, "Oh, poor Tommy, you okay?" I just wanted to know that he didn't care how okay I was. He wanted me on the ice. That was the inspiration to me, that he thought I was that valuable to the team, whether I was 100%.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's complicated because you got to read the situation as well. But it is amazing what will inspire people. I often tell the story. I saw it was actually at Steve Yzerman's first training camp when he showed up. He was either 153 or 158. Jim Devellano and I can't agree on what he was. How much he weighed, but he wasn't very big. And when he took his first shift on the ice, it was clear to everybody that he was the best player on the team. He was, whatever he was, 19 years old, and he was better than everyone else, no matter. And, Devellano just told me recently again that he had, before that training camp started, had reminded Steve Yzerman that, I'm not handing you a place. It's a distinct possibility that I'm going to send you back to junior. Right. And of course, Yzerman went out there and made it impossible for him to send him back, much like Lucas Raymond has done in Detroit. In fact, Devellano says Lucas Raymond reminds him a little bit of Yzerman in that regard. But the point I want to make is I've seen Steve Yzerman. My memories of him are not necessarily all about the great leader that he became as he matured as a person, but I remember him as the 150-point guy. I remember writing a lead that said that Steve Yzerman was the best player in the mere mortal division outside of Gretzky and Lemieux. Right. He was the best player. I mean, he was money on a breakaway, and he got a lot of breakaways. Right. Only Mario Lemieux I thought was better on a breakaway than Steve Yzerman. Tremendous offensive player. Right. But if you ask Chris Draper, if you're talking about Steve Yzerman's career, the story he will tell is when they won their Stanley Cup in 2002. When Steve Yzerman was literally playing on one leg. He had the other thing, had a bone transplanted into his knee. Right. He tells the story that when Yzerman would get knocked down, he would have to use the stick as leverage to pull himself up. Yeah. He couldn't just stand up. He had to put the stick on the ice and grit his teeth and push down and then get himself up and skate again. That's the story he tells. Now, what was more inspirational, that was far greater in terms of inspirational value than the fact that he was an incredible offensive player in the height of his career.
Well, and especially to a Chris Draper is typically a third or fourth line guy, right? Yeah. He's saying to himself, I got to block shots and I'm going to be hurting here in a playoff series. I got to keep on going. And he looks down and he sees Yzerman doing that. And he's saying, well, if Yzerman can do it, I can certainly do it. Right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of stories about him shooting, numbing his injuries. And of course it would run out about the into the second, and then if the game went into overtime, there was a lot of bone on bone pain and all that nonsense. So, it's just incredible, and the leadership issue is difficult. And looking back, let's go back to Steve Duchesne. Like, it's not that I'm have personal knowledge of Roman Josi, but I've been around him, and he seems like a good guy captain to me. Just an incredibly nice man who works hard at the game. He's a great player himself. I just can't see him confronting Matt Duchesne. Yeah. Like, pulling him aside and saying, Matt, you got to be better. So I'd be interesting to know what if anything he did.
I was listening to the NHL Network on the Sirius the other day. I was driving around. And I think it was Shane O'Brien was on doing some discussing Matt Duchene, and he played with him at some point. I can't remember where it was. And he was very careful the way he said it. He actually used the word selfish at some point, but he kind of prefaced it saying, well, I don't want to say he's totally selfish, but there's that aura about him, and that's the way he was talking about Duchene. So you're right. And that's tough. If a player really hasn't like naturally bought into the whole team thing, and he just thinks he's a talented guy that can just get away with being a talented player, then it is really tough for a player to go to him and kind of reprimand him. Maybe you can sit down and say, hey, listen, let's go for lunch together. Let's have a beer. That kind of thing. But again, without knowing the personality of Duchene, it's kind of like, how does he receive that? Does he respect the other person enough? Again, if it's a Mark Messier, then you're going to respect that. But if it's, it's not like Roman Josi isn't a fantastic player, but does Duchene respect him enough to really listen to what he's saying and take it to heart? So,
well, and it takes on leadership and camaraderie, and the dressing room takes on greater importance sometimes with off the ice incidents. Yeah. I remember Jordan Tutu, who has said a couple of times, talked about the role that his teammates played in getting his alcoholism under control. And he doesn't go into great detail, but it seemed there must have been some form of intervention that happened with teammates who say, hey, Jordan, you need to get your life together. And he celebrates his sobriety now regularly. I love Jordan Tutu, by the way. So with full disclosure, just an incredibly nice a kid. He still seems like a kid to me. Yeah. Even though he's retired out of the game, but he celebrates his sobriety, and he has often talked about the role that teammates played in that. And, again, I had the impression that there was some form of intervention. I don't know if it was one player, two players, multiple players, but they said, it's time. It's time, Jordan, for you to, get it together. So it can be a important aspect in players' life. I wanted to get your thoughts too. I just wrote this like yesterday, so it's still fresh in my mind. Nedeljkovic, who's goalie now for the Red Wings, who played last year in Carolina, was talking about the changes in his life after the trade. And for the Red Wings, it's been a major change because he handles the puck so often. They didn't have anybody like that. So it's been very confusing because, as he said, it's pretty weird for these guys to look up and see their goalie in the corner, and they've had an adjustment period. Right. But he said for him, the change has been this. He lived in Detroit in the off season, married to a Detroit woman who was going to Michigan State University getting her degree. She didn't come with him when he played in Carolina because she's a student. Right. So he was alone. And he said, the difference is this. When you're alone in Carolina, he said, all I thought about was hockey. Yeah. He said, I get home, I thought about my game, what I could do to make my game better. I watched the games at night, and it was hockey, 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 hockey. Yeah. Now we're together and things, and I come home, I play with my dog, I chat with my wife about how her days go, and I relax, he said. He said, I don't have to think about it all the time. And I thought, wow, like that's something you don't think about, but he thinks he's better off, having the, his wife there, his dog, the creature comforts, and that it helps him be a better goalie because he's not analyzing it 24 hours a day.
Oh, totally. I agree with that 100%. I think one of the things you learn when you turn to be a pro is having a short memory, both in a good way and a bad way. Like if you play a great game, don't be sitting around talking about thinking about how great you are, because now you're not prepared for the next game. Same thing if you have a bad game. And really important for a goaltender. You can't sit around and dwell about the negative either. You got to prepare for that next game. So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. You come home and get away from it. Yeah.
You see, if you had watched Ted Lasso, you'd be saying you got to be a goldfish, because Ted Lasso says that the goldfish has the world's shortest memory.
Oh, there you go.
Only a few minutes. Right. So when they'd give up a bad goal, he'd say, you got to be a goldfish.
Right, there you go. Well, the hockey world, it's the KISS theory, right? So KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's hockey.
Yeah, that's not a hockey thing. That's actually a
we didn't invent that. The hockey world did not invent that?
Yeah, no, that's my uncles and stuff had that down in the 1950s and 60s. So, I thought that was like the other one too, and at least in Detroit, because we were in understanding, is that if it didn't fit, get a bigger hammer. So that was the other one that I learned when I was a kid. Okay, let's move on and talk about some other things. around the hockey world as I hear my grandkids getting fired up.
There you go.
I want to talk a little bit about the Edmonton Oilers. We're 20% into the season almost, and the Oilers still look good.
Yeah, they do.
And doing it with goaltending that I think everyone thinks is suspect, but I'm starting to believe in them. I've watched them quite a bit, and I know you need all elements. In fact, you need the defensive element more in the playoffs than in the regular season. But their offense is so much fun that I think that Holland can make a couple of moves and they could be a legitimate contender. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is John Tortorella talking about Connor McDavid needing to change his game a little bit.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. Did he really?
Yeah. He just suggested that, and I saw a tweet, and now I wish I could remember who said it. But I agree with it. And what he said was, if Connor McDavid has to change his game, then there's something wrong with the game, not what's wrong with Connor McDavid. Because obviously Connor McDavid is why we love to watch the game. Like, he's such an exciting player,
and I can see where Tortorella would come from, because when he came to the Rangers here, he really changed the face of the team. It was kind of a softer team. It turned into banging everybody and blocking. He wanted everybody blocking shots. So to suggest that Connor McDavid, I'm not putting words in John Tortorella's mouth, but suggest that he needs to now start blocking shots or whatever. It's like asking.
Yeah. Well, I doubt whether anybody ever tried to change Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah. What's the old saying I saw? It's like asking Picasso to paint your garage, right? It's like he is what he is. This is how he plays the game, and just let him go play. If anything, and the more I think about Tortorella's comments, maybe he's trying to stir the pot or something. Because if anything, let Connor McDavid be who he is. If you have to fill in spots, if he's lacking something in his game, get other people around him to do that stuff. It's not change his game.
Yeah. That's true. Mike Babcock, when he coached, from talking to players, this is not something he ever said to me, but I did get this from players. He always let the top six forwards do what they wanted to do.
Right.
And then the third and fourth line belonged to him. You did what he wanted you to do.
Yeah, definitely.
But, you need those goals, and you really can't, you don't want to stymie creativity. I guess is the best way to do it. So you've got to sort of let them be them. And, you hear people discuss that over time, that we're overcoached at the youth level to the point that the freelancing that kids need when they're young to try different things is sort of being coached out of them. Like, don't try that,
Bobby Orr, I believe he said this in his book. Said that if I played the way every coach wanted me to play on the way up, I wouldn't be Bobby Orr. Like, he talked specifically about things. Coaches want you to, when you're 10 feet inside your blue line, make sure the puck gets out, even if you have to bounce it off the boards. Well, Bobby Orr would never do that. He'd hold on to the puck. Fox for the Rangers is the same way. And Gallant, in an interview, even acknowledged that Fox does things that other players he wouldn't allow to do, because Fox can do it. But you think about then, okay, well, if Fox can do it, why can't some other guy do it then? Why can't Jacob Trouba do it? If you really let him do it, would he be able to do it as well? Because to me, that's a lot of it's mental and that confidence to be able to do the things that Fox does. But yeah.
Well, things I talked about this on another podcast, but I don't think you and I have talked about this. But some of the rules that were unwritten rules when you played hard and fast, now through the evolution of the game, are completely changed. And I'll give you a couple of them. Number one, and I remember when this change occurred. Defensemen who are now trapped behind the net pass the puck in front of the net to a teammate.
Yeah.
Now, the first guy I ever saw do that was Nick Lidstrom. And I thought he had done it with Scotty Bowman's blessing. And I asked Scotty about it, and he goes, no, that's Nick Lidstrom's plan. And I said, what did you think? And Scotty said, well, he's Nick Lidstrom. I'm going to let him do what he wants to do. And, you wouldn't doubt Wayne Gretzky either.
Right.
But then more and more people saw how effective that was. Now we see it regularly. Yeah. And does it cost them? Yeah, I'm sure it does every once in a while. Yeah. But the vast percentage of those instances when they do that, it results in a breakout. They've gotten out of trouble.
Right.
So,
And you think about the alternative is just ringing around the boards like we used to do all the
Right.
time. And that play got picked off too.
Picked
So
off.
now, right. So now it's along the board, so it's less dangerous than the front of the net, but still getting picked off and it's still a turnover. So,
well, and I would argue that gets picked off along the boards at a much higher
Totally.
percentage.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it doesn't. It just takes one quick shot, a quick pass to the slot, and it's right back there anyway.
Definitely. You know, the other guy too is Larry Robinson, and I've told this before. What a real pleasure to play with him in my career in Los Angeles. But he was the same way. He'd come around the back of the net and fire it right up the middle, and shoot for a breakaway, and it would get picked off a lot. But the key to it was that he wouldn't stop doing it. He just kept doing it because he knew that, okay, yes, it's going to get picked off, just like we said, it gets picked off going around the board, but it also creates some great offensive opportunities coming your own. But that's
the second thing is, and I know you're going to relate to this as well. If you're protecting a 1-goal lead, it's late in the game, empty net, I don't care where you are on the ice now, you fire that puck. It used to be you had to cross center ice.
Yeah.
Man, and coaches support that because now they've done the analytics and they know, you get that goal, that shot in the net, and a lot of guys are pretty skilled at that.
Totally. Yeah, I do. I watch that now, and I've gotten used to it happening more.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too. So I want to add another element. Well, and we've done it too with the pulling of the goalie. We're doing it much earlier, but I want to add another element because I want to ask your thoughts on it. When you have the short change and you're playing in the defensive zone, killing a penalty, and you block a shot and you're hurt.
Right. I
see it all the time. Guys, they try to stand up and they're in tremendous pain. They're immobile, and it's 5-on-3, really, because they can't do anything. Wouldn't it be better when you have the short change to crawl over to that bench and get that fresh guy into the play? Because I've seen that go on for 45, 50 seconds, and then they score because they're 5-on-3.
Well,
essentially,
being the old school guy that blocks shots, I'm going to tell you that unless your leg is broken, you better get up and skate. I get it, but
but it doesn't work that way. I mean, that's nice that there's bravado, but I've seen the guys; they're just not as effective. Maybe 15 or 20 seconds they will be. But you can't move. Because it's you have that sort of
there is cases just the pain's so bad you can't function well.
You just can't function. So I think it's a judgment call.
Right. It's the same thing when a guy loses a stick in his zone too. Like he plays without a stick. It's virtually he can't do anything.
Complete and they take it. I'm going to tell you another thing too, which really kind of shocked me. I have tremendous frustration as a fan of the game when guys continually get their shots blocked.
I know, yeah.
Continually get their shots blocked, and I thought, why do you keep shooting in there? Now, I'm listening to Jeff Blatchel, and I'm sure he's not the only coach who feels this way. And they're talking about the fact that the Red Wings don't take enough shots on the power play. This is the reporters and he are in a give and take. And why don't they shoot more? And Blatchel says, well, on the face of it, it seems like an easy thing. Just shoot the puck. But what happens, he said, is, and this, I just about fell over. He said, it's hard sometimes because players' instincts is, I don't want to get my shot blocked.
Yeah.
And if I don't shoot, it's not going to get blocked. And I have to tell them and convince them sometimes a blocked shot is a good play because it creates chaos.
Huh?
And puck flies over like a pinball in play, and no one knows where it's going to go, and it might land at the feet of one of our players who rips it into the net.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way. It's true, too. Yeah, because I remember the old days, especially for a guy like me, if I didn't get it through the forwards in front of the net, go, Tom, just get the puck in deep, for God's sakes.
Yeah. And to be honest, I hate that deep play. You got the puck, you're driving in the offensive zone, and some guys look up, and the guys are standing up at the blue line, so they just throw it deep, and we'll get it back. Well, why give it up? Why?
Well, especially when your forwards are, if it's a defenseman shooting in, if you've gotten to the blue line, you make that play, inevitably your forwards are standing still at the blue line, so they can't go get it. I mean, they've got to get going again to go get it. So if it's I like it if it's a design play where you're saying, okay, we got to get to the red line with our forwards moving, and you're going to dump it in, then go get it.
Right.
If that's the case, you're designing that play. I agree. But it's a useless play.
Yeah, it's
I can't go too long here. I've got to call at 10 o'clock, but I just want to really quick. The most important thing on Monday, obviously, is the Sunday meal. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did actually. You had it was the colorful shrimp.
Thank you very much. Because as you know, I've been devastated by your comment months ago about the lack of.
Yeah, and I really actually feel bad about that because it was not intended to be a slight in any way, shape, or form. I was just commenting on the color, just as I was saying. Sometimes you might say, "Is that a blue or a green?" That's how it was meant.
That shows how much I respect you, right? And how sensitive I am towards your comments. So, yeah. I'm sorry I have to go so quick here today.
Yeah, no problem. We'll wrap it up. We'll be doing the show Wednesday. I'll be in Chicago. Another case of my grandkids having to be quarantined because somebody in their class has come down with COVID-19. So I'll be the quarantine buddy for my granddaughter Harper.
I like that. We do our shows from there. They're always good shows. So yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll be doing it from downtown Chicago. They live right in the heart of Chicago.
Excellent. So. Good deal. All right. So if anybody wants to listen to the radio version of this show, again, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports, and you can listen or read Kevin on Hockey Buzz. And what else are you?
DetroitHockeyNow.com.
All right. Everybody, again, sorry we had to go so short here today, but we'll see everybody on Wednesday.